Hey guys, I'm Yasmin. I am the creative director for the Brand Garden, and I'm here today with two amazing creatives. I'm just going to introduce my pronouns first, and then I'll go and introduce them. I go by the pronoun she, her. Felix, introduce your lovely self.
Hi, I'm Felix Edgar. I go by she, they, he, and I am the proud owner of a small business called Crochet Clown Creations on Instagram. I'm also a artist.
Love it. Savannah?
So I'm an artist and small business owner as well. My pronouns are they, he. And so my small business is Ugly Leo.
Amazing. Right, so I am just going to go and kick things off then. So, to you both, what does creativity mean to you? Felix, Savannah, anyone?
I think creativity means to me freedom of expression in any way, shape, and form you choose to be. And I think it can literally be anything.
Yeah. Love that. Go on.
I'd agree. I think just any way that you can express yourself. And I think it's something that's quite fundamental, at least for me, to just existing. I think it's sometimes it can be turning something that's like a not so great experience into something that looks awesome, or it can just be, like Felix said, any way that you're able to express yourself, and it can be anything.
Yeah, I think it's definitely like, I don't know, like creativity is a beautiful thing. You know what I mean? Like,
I think it's very integral to, like Savannah said, with existing, and like even without realizing, we all enjoy something that is created. It was created by somebody else and we enjoy it, whether it's music, whether it's a play, whether it's a building that you really like to look at, whether it's the way someone put a garden together. And do you know what I mean? Like we all enjoy something creative, and it all gives us that like serotonin relief, whether it's us creating it or just appreciating that something else someone else has done. Do you know what I mean? So when you say, oh, I really like that person's house, someone still had to create that vision to create that house for it to look like that, for you to walk past and say you enjoyed it.
Yeah, I think, you know what I mean as well, like creatives are like the sickest people, because they just come up with like the most amazing things, and you're like, wow, like all of our brains are just wired differently, and I think that's the most beautiful thing that we should all hold on to. It's just like, there's no one like us. Like, we are all our own. We are all, I don't know, I think I could go down it completely lose myself in a big black hole talking about creativity. Right, it's wicked. Let's go to the next question then. How does your art form represent your identity? Deep, I know.
Asking all the philosophical questions today. I think my art form represents me by, even without trying, I can't help but let who I am bleed into it, I think. And what I present as, or what I feel about the world, or what I feel the world feels about me. Or a lot of times, and something I've been really experimenting with is, how can I put it? You're going to be judged by people and looked upon for what they can see anyway. So they might as well see what I have on my inside on the outside. So they get the message that way, and then there's no lost in translation. So I feel like I've been really exploring that and using wording in text, in textiles, to explore that. And just to get kind of people's feedback and what they think about it, kind of, and being like, there's no good or bad answer, because I'm not going to stop doing that. I'm not going to stop putting that out there just because someone else doesn't agree with it, or it makes someone else uncomfortable, you know? So yeah.
I think for me, I guess a lot of my work tends to be quite colorful, and I guess those are just the colors that I'm drawn to. And I think there is, like Felix was saying, your work tends to be a reflection of yourself, whether you intend for it to be or not. And so, like, whether it's the choice of colors that I'm drawn to, or the way that I work with certain mediums, I think it's very unique to us. And I think the really cool thing about being creative is that even though we could all like have the same materials, like all of us would create something completely different, and the ideas that we have in our mind are unique to us. Even if someone makes something really similar, it's never going to look exactly the same. Yeah, so I think that's kind of how my work is a reflection of me.
Yeah. No, I think that's both of what you said is fantastic. Really is. I was gonna say, like, as a Black creative, do you feel that you've had to reassess yourself in a predominantly white industry?
Do you want to go first this time, Savannah? Just
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, I think I find that in a lot of creative industries, they are predominantly white spaces. And so your experience is always a racialized experience, because your um, your experience of being in that setting is through the lens of someone who is a minority. And I guess whether you want it to be or not, that is the reality of your experience. And I think for me, like being, whether it's being at uni or like working in an art shop, I was surrounded by a lot of other white people, and I think that did have an impact on me. I think sometimes it does show through my work as well, because like I was saying, our work is a reflection of ourselves. And I think that I guess maybe it kind of builds up a resilience, because you are aware that there's this like added pressure, or I don't know. I think for people who aren't a minority, it's something that they don't have to think about.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of hard to explain for people that don't really experience that. But yeah, I think, or even just being in spaces where you don't see other people like you, and you can't have someone that can relate to your experience, it does kind of put a lot of pressure on you in a way, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I think as well, like, if I was kind of referring to my own experience in the music industry, I think last year I did this course where it was kind of putting a light on the lack of women of color within the touring industry. And it literally went into absolutely everything, where, like, from doing that course, you realize there is a sheer lack of women within the music industry, for example, or women in places of power within the music industry, and especially women of color. Well, it's
Yeah.
insane. It's insane, and I don't know, like, especially now, you kind of like, for me, I feel like I always have to like push myself a lot further to kind of
Mm-hmm.
be on par with other people within the industry as well. So I think it's definitely, for me, it's quite mentally draining having to kind of always reassess how I
Absolutely.
present myself or how I say something, for example, because
you're not just presenting you, you're presenting like
Yeah.
everyone that
And
looks
that's
like
the
you,
thing.
or yeah,
Like,
yeah.
people who aren't minorities never have to think that they're representing every person of that race. Whereas when you are the only person, like, you will be someone's only experience of this kind of person, or that kind of person in that space. So
yeah.
you're hyper aware of the way that you look, the way that you act. And it is really draining.
Mm.
I
Exactly.
always say like the thing about if you walk, let's say you walk out your house with 80% energy, right, for that day, I will leave, or a lot of people kind of literally spend 40% of that energy on the comments, the self-evaluation, the genuine internal like going ons and struggle of being in whatever position they are in when they're going to work, earning, this, that, and the other, and you're left with another 40 to get like through the rest of your day. That is exhausting, and that is really draining. And thinking about this question, I always view most spaces that you will walk into, most spaces that I have been in, going through university and school and stuff like that, have been white spaces. Most of the world, in a way, or most the world that I've ever walked has been a white space, whether it's a shop, whether it's your workplace, whether it's your university, whether you're going for an apprenticeship and you look around and you're like, oh, okay, like a lot of them are white spaces. A lot of them are spaces with a white mentality in that space. If that makes sense. Regardless on how many white people are there, it's how they talk or how they conduct themselves, and then how they'll view you as other and put you in a box and put you in that category. And you're working so hard, and you feel you're working double as hard as everyone else to just be on par, like you said, and then to show, wait a minute, I have all these skills, I have all these attributes. Do you know what I mean? That you didn't consider because you saw my color first. And even when you make artwork, and if I make artwork now and stuff, you will always be seen as, or sometimes how I feel, something you looked as like, oh, that was a really good piece of artwork for a person of color. Or even if you don't make an art piece, you're making just an aesthetic one for yourself for some reason, it will always be seen as a Black artist piece of work. And that is a privilege, but it's also the thing of you're always put down into a category. Does that make sense? You guys?
That's like insane. It actually boggles my mind. Like, I'd love to go into a world where like us as creatives could go and show a piece and it'd be like, this is done by Felix, not by, this is done by Felix, a black artist. Or I don't know, I just feel like like
it's looked on completely
reiterating the point that you are a black artist who has done this piece. But then if you go to, I don't know, if a white artist did the same thing, there's no white at the front of their name.
No.
So it's just reiterating the point that we are a minority. We will always have to, I don't know, put ourselves out there. We would always have to, it is always going to be known that
we are other.
Yeah, we are always the other. I just think it's absolutely insane. I don't know. I think like if I'm going back to like what I did my essay on like Afrofuturism, if you guys know about that, and it's kind of talking about spaces where it's Afrocentric, and it's talking about, you know, celebrating Black power, you know, Black women, Black music, and how that is the norm. So if you think about, for example, if I, something at the top of my head, like Black Panther, think about the Black Panther, that's literally, you know, celebrating Black clothing, you know, you've got the Black buildings, and that's like normal, and it's celebrated, and they're celebrating Black art. And I just think, like, imagine a world where those two things, celebrating Black art and celebrating white art, could be put together and it would be the same thing. It's everyone celebrates the creativity of someone on the same level. And I don't know, I mean, that's most people thinking at the moment, but like the fact that we're sat here talking about this is insane. You know what I mean? It shouldn't, I don't know.
It's the fact that you can meet other people of color creatives and they will have a story for you. Do you know what I mean? They will have no two people have the same journey, but they will have a similar feeling about it or a similar story, because it is the norm and the kind of way of everything. And it's kind of interesting when you put I was on a conversation with my friend and they were talking about putting, when there's scenarios where it's like gatherings where it's primarily, like you said, like if it was a Black card and Black people, and I've been like, you know, if it's a creative thing or a celebratory thing or whatever it is, and it's a public thing, I always, you know, I might invite my friends. They are not always a person of color, and they might say, am I allowed to be there? And I find it interesting because I walk into white spaces all the time and I'm like, it kind of took me back and be like, what do you mean? It's a public space. So does that mean I should always ask if I'm allowed to be in a white space? But I'm conditioned to be like, we're kind of conditioned to be like, it's a white world. It is what it is. Does that make sense? The acceptance
like
of
we're
it.
used to having to be in predominantly white spaces and just dealing with it.
Exactly. But when it's the other way around, people are like, oh, should I be there? And I understand that on a respect level, but it's also like putting them being the other, them, do you know what I mean, feeling how small it feels, or like withdrawing or not want to doing it and stuff like that. And it's like, that's what a person of color has to face with for survival, has to face every single day. Every single day. Do you know what I mean? Obviously, there's more predominantly white areas, more predominantly like mixed areas and stuff like that. And you can definitely find your community. You definitely find an amazing group of people, whatever color they are. But it's something that, without a doubt, you will have to face it at some point or another. Do you know what I mean? You are always aware that you're another instead of you can't ever like just blend in. Does that make sense? Sometimes I just want to blend.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like, I don't know. Sometimes like I do feel that I want to blend in. But then another part of me is like, nah, fuck off. I don't want to blend in. Like,
I think it's more just wanting to be seen on the same level, given the same opportunity, just being seen and being like, oh, you're as capable as the next person.
Of course, I think from that stance I agree. But then if you're kind of talking in a sense of like, I just want to blend in, I'm like, nah. Like, we should be celebrating the skin we are in. Like, I've got the brown, lovely, melanated skin. I don't need to be blending in with anyone else. Like, I am going to be celebrating who I am. But it's hard to kind of go from that perspective, but also in the back of your mind, you're like, oh, but I am also a minority. I'm also other. It's one of those, it's back and forth.
Definitely. I think that's why like conversations like this and what you are doing with your company and so on, that's why it's so important, because you're putting that back out there. You're being like, this is what we're celebrating, this is what we are. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's why stuff like this is so important, and all these conversations are so important, because it's that point of being like, no, not being silent in your experience, especially as a creative. Obviously it's already in your work anyway. And just being able to talk about it.
100%. Okay, let's go to the next question. What role models did you feel you could connect with growing up?
Like as a child or more recently, or
any? I'd say BRIT school, when we were all at BRIT school. I thought this question was a tough one.
Yeah.
I'll explain why.
Well, do you want to go first, Felix, or?
Whatever you would like, Savannah.
Okay. Because I think for me, one of the people that I see as an inspiration and like has helped me kind of along the way. So I discovered them a bit after BRIT, but they're a South African photographer and artist called Zanele Maholi. And yeah, so they're a Black non-binary photographer, and a lot of their work is centered around Black LGBT South Africans, and also themselves. They do a lot of self-portraiture. And for me, seeing their work and the work of other African LGBT artists was something that really kind of inspired me to step into myself and embrace my identity. Because I think a lot of the time, being Black and LGBT, you feel like you have to, I guess, choose parts of yourself depending on the spaces that you're in, because there's a lot of, like, obviously not all Black communities are accepting of LGBT people, and there's also a lot of racism in LGBT communities. So for me, being able to see artists that did identify in that way, and especially artists that lived in Africa as well, because there are so many anti-LGBT laws and stuff like that. So to see that even though being visible for them is something that's quite dangerous, they were still being themselves, embracing all parts of their identity. Yeah, for me, that is something that's been really inspiring.
No, it's amazing.
Well, it is a really hard question. In honesty, I think that in terms of being, I don't know, I feel like it was mainly the world around me and the people that involved in my life at that time. I feel like at that time I was someone that's was kind of very late to the internet and stuff, and researching a lot of stuff, and a lot of my inspiration came from those around me. So whether it was like, watching my mum as I grew up, and like my sister is also creative, and seeing all the work she would create and everything that she would pour into it, and it really inspired me to make work and to create work. And I think being younger, I never really thought about me being black and putting it in my work, really. I never really thought about me being queer and putting it in my work, really. And it was while we were kind of all at BRIT when, you know, me being inspired to what I want to do in my work and how I want to put myself in my work, like the prospect of putting myself in my artwork kind of finally came to me. And it was watching my friends like such as Savannah, and there was also we have a friend called Tyrese, and being in that group, and it was kind of, I just remember like bouncing off with each other, and it was just such a comfortable space where I could grow, and we all felt we were growing and pushing each other, and it was so powerful that in all honesty inspired a lot of the work kind of I made afterwards, and a lot of confidence that I built was from those relations in such a creative environment where we really just did accept each other how we were, and we just had space to grow with each other, and we were in the same like age range. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a good one. I feel like in terms of just the kind of creative outlet it gave us, and I don't know, I can thank a lot for Brit in terms of that aspect. Then I'll kind of go into this as well. Do you feel that there was a lack of role models that you could aspire to when growing up? Let's say go further back from Brit.
I mean, personally, definitely. I remember growing up, and I think my worldview was very skewed. I actually made work about what I actually saw on TV and stuff like that, and what I would consume, and what I thought the idea of beautiful was, or pretty, or what, for example, a black person could wear or do, like things like literally right now I have like red lipstick on and I have blush on and stuff like that. I thought I couldn't wear that, and that wasn't for me growing up. And there was like a lot of like things that now I think back, and now I'm an adult, I can see it from outside perspective. But younger me was like, oh, this is where I fit in, this is where I belong, this is what's good enough and stuff like that. Do you know what I mean? This is how the world sees me, and I have to accept it. And my skin isn't beautiful. Do you know what I mean? And it very different world that we live in now, and we have a lot more access to things, with a lot more access to information. But this is the time when like internet didn't exist, I'm pretty sure, when I'm talking about. Do you know what I mean? There wasn't really any way for you to kind of like choose what you saw. It was what was on TV and what was in front of you. Do you know what I mean? So I definitely do feel like as a kid there were lacking in people who looked like me, acted like me, or even if they were on TV, they were put as side characters, the one that's laughed at. Do you know what I mean? Oh, their skin color is a gimmick, is a joke, is for comic relief. They're not taken seriously, and stuff like that. So, and I think looking at the generation I'm in now, and when I did go to Britain and stuff, I saw how it bled down into how our generation was thinking, and how kids responded to my skin color when I was in, you know, French groups that were mainly white and stuff, and how they responded to me. And now I look back and it's what they saw on TV and what they deemed as, oh, this is how black people are, and this is how they fit in, and it's okay to make jokes out of them, or what they look like, or their skin color, or do you know what I mean, make assumptions that they do certain things, you know. And I think it was a very different time when we really didn't have access to that information, and it did bleed through into kind of the generation I'm in now.
I just want to kind of go on what you were saying before in terms of, you know, the stereotypes that black women faced. I think you did a piece, I think last year, that I actually saw, and I think it was to do with, I think it was not the woman but always the, what was it again?
Oh, always the bridesmaid, never the bride. It was called. Yeah.
No, that was great. I remember seeing that, and that was really impactful.
Thank you.
Yeah, Savannah.
Yeah, I think definitely looking back, had a lack of role models in terms of like Felix was saying, I think now it's easy to be able to see people who are like me and who I can aspire to be like in regards to having access to the internet. But I think particularly when you're maybe like family or people around you don't really have conversations about certain things or about the different ways that you can be, or even if you're not seeing it in the media, then it is really hard to know all of the different ways that you can exist. And I think particularly with the lack of representation that we had growing up, in terms of if Black people would always be the side character or be typecast to be like the sassy Black woman and X, Y, and Z. Like, I think me and Felix can probably both speak on not seeing Black people who looked like quirky and colorful and looked like us. And so I think, like, I've definitely had experiences where people would tell me that I acted white or didn't act like a Black person or wasn't Black enough because they had this perception. And this would come from Black people and white people. But because they had this perception that if you're Black, you have to be a certain way. And I think I'm grateful now that there is more access to the understanding that being Black is expansive, and we don't have to limit ourselves. Yeah.
Oh, both great answers.
Pardon? Say it again, sorry. Art,
How do you
creativity,
feel
and
your art or your creativity and your activism comes together?
Person. I mean, Savannah, did you want to go first on this one?
I can rephrase it if you want.
So for me, I feel like my art is a way that my creativity manifests. And in terms of activism, I think that there are so many different ways that we can be active in terms of the things that are important to us. And I think obviously something that a lot of our generation are able to, ways that we're able to be active is via social media. And so if we're making work that is about things that are important to us, we're able to share that on social media. But we're also able to work with organizations. Like for me, I've made some prints and like have been trying to sell them to raise money for LGBT organizations that help Black LGBT people in the UK. And I think for me, doing things like that is a way that I'm able to be like, these are the skills that I have. This is how I can use them to fight for and kind of look out for people that I care about and be active in my communities.
Yeah, great.
I feel like the way mine kind of aligns with activism is, I felt like we said before about, you know, whatever you make in your work, who you are is going to come out in it. And in that, I am acting on who I am and I'm presenting it to the world. And I feel like through my brand, everything I strive to be and how I strive to grow will be in a lot of queer and Black communities, in, like Savannah said, like giving back to charities and being able to use my voice to bolster other people's voices. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And to be able to use whatever platform I have to put people who don't have maybe as big a platform up. And I don't have that big a platform myself anyway. And also just in growing my business, I really want to be able to employ people from the queer and Black community. That makes sense. Giving opportunities that a lot of people might not have or might not have access to. And it's all, personally for me, it's all about working from the ground up.
Yeah.
And do you know what I mean? Like doing all the grunt work and really hammering home what you want to be, where you want to be at, and who you want to bring with you. And I just, through me keeping doing what I'm doing, I'm hoping that is my activism.
Right, now in 2 words, because I can see the timer is going down. It's really do you have any advice or any words of wisdom for any Black queer creatives that want to get the foot in the door or just to meet the right people? In 2 words, hit me.
I don't think I can do 2 words, but I can do 2 points.
Be confident.
You never know what you can get until you ask for it, and there's no harm in asking because you'll be back at the same position anyway. And just keep on being as authentically you as you can be, because no one else has your story but you. No one else is entitled to it more. No one is entitled to it. Firstly, don't let anyone overstep themselves and take any energy from you that you don't want to give.
My 2 words are keep going.
Yes. Keep
That's
going.
good. I just said that.
Give up. And
Yeah.
own your goddamn craft. Stay confident. Exactly.
Honestly. Like, you never know who you're inspiring. I think just by being yourself and being authentic, you're inspiring someone. They might not tell you, but like, just keep going. People are watching what you're doing and feeling the confidence to be themselves because of you.
Yeah. And it's okay to reach out to your community and ask for help and ask for support. It doesn't make you any less. It doesn't make you weak or anything. That's what we're all put on this earth to. We're all put on this earth to connect and to help each other.
Amazing. Well, guys, thank you so much for your time. I really, really appreciate it.